Okay, we're online, go ahead.
We have quorum, therefore I'd like to call this meeting to order. Good afternoon. Today is Tuesday, August 12th, and this is the regular meeting of the El Paso County Historical Commission. The time is 4:23 p.m. Could everyone please stand for the pledges of allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible. Thank you all. All right. Would you like to call the attendance, please?
Yes. Commissioner Howell? Commissioner McKenzie?
Present.
Commissioner Condon?
Present.
Commissioner Chaparro?
Present.
Commissioner Welch?
Here.
Commissioner Hamilton?
Here.
Commissioners Kidney, Bear, and Kanoff are absent.
Thank you. Is anyone signed up for public comment?
I don't believe we have anyone signed up for public comment.
All right. Then that will take us on to the consent agenda. The consent agenda is item 5, A through D. It is committee reports and the minutes from July 8th. Does anyone want any of these pulled for further discussion? All right, is there a motion to approve?
Motion to approve consent agenda.
Okay, is there a second?
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes.
Thank you. Now that will bring us on to item 6, the regular agenda. A, receive a presentation from Dr. David Romo on behalf of the nonprofit organization Project Regeneracion regarding the history and historic preservation efforts in Duranguito and South El Paso. Dr. Romo.
Well, thank you so much. I'm so glad that we made it. Everybody, thank you, everybody.
As are
and
we
thank
all.
you, Dr. Renteria, for the invitation and you all. So the kind of history that I do, I call global microhistory. And so microhistory is looking at a very small slice of geography. And a lot of microhistorians will look at a village. Some of them might look at a neighborhood. Others might look at a single building. And they're looking for clues, kind of like a detective, like Sherlock Holmes. And sometimes these clues are incredibly insignificant, just like a Sherlock Holmes movie where you see something in the beginning and that's the little piece of hair that helps you solve a bigger mystery. So I have been studying what is known as the Segundo Barrio and what is now known as Duranguito for quite a while, for maybe more than 2 decades. And the first book that I wrote, Ringside C2 Revolution, I focused a lot on that 1 square mile of Segundo Barrio. And I found a lot of spaces that had connections to the Mexican Revolution. Now, the Mexican Revolution is the first major social revolution of the 20th century. Before the Cuban Revolution, the Russian Revolution, all these other global revolutions of the 20th century. And El Paso had an incredible number of sites. I counted more than 80 specific buildings. And they were everything from Pancho Villa's hideout to places where there were these radical newspapers where the revolutionary perceptions and ideologies were disseminated, places that had to do with gun smuggling, with espionage. And so I came to realize that by looking at these small spaces, they offer you windows of a bigger reality, a bigger historical reality. And so you ask questions like, isn't that strange that the border, the margin, was the center of a national revolution? Like most revolutions take place at the storming of the Bastille in Paris, right, in central areas, the Russian Revolution. So why is it that the border was so important? So then these specific little sites are more than just local stories. They become global stories. And so that's what I found by looking at Duranguito. For a long time, I think most of us didn't even know that it was called Duranguito. People said, "Oh, you just made that up," but no. And so I'm giving you this booklet that I just wrote a few months ago, and you're going to see a lot of the documentation, the footnotes, where you'll see evidence that it was already being called Duranguito as early as 1904. But it was, is this my way of, oh, great. Duranguito now has a national reputation. That's what it's known. One HBO documentary, there's been several documentaries done on Duranguito today, because now it's become part of this national consciousness of fighting against displacement. So whether you agree with the cause or you think the arena should have been placed there or not, now it has national significance, whether you like it or not. And people are coming to this place because of its modern history. Duranguito is the birthplace of the modern city of El Paso. We're not the ones that said this. It was Sonicson, back in his book, The Pass of the North, who said that area that later became Rancho Ponce de Leon was considered the birthplace of El Paso. But as I looked at it more, I was hired by the attorneys that represented the preservationists and the residents of Duranguito to do research of whether or not there was an indigenous presence, concentrated indigenous presence in Duranguito. So I looked through all these maps from all the different kinds of archives. I actually visited, I don't know, easily more than a dozen archives. And I had never known that there were 3 roads that were part of the Camino Real before. We've always thought, and that was based on Sonicson, that the Camino Real passed somewhere through what do you call it, the mill?
Anson Mill?
The what?
The Anson Mill? Or the
Not the Anson. The what?
Harts Mill? Okay.
Yeah, Harts Mill, right?
Okay.
And there's actually
Yeah.
a historical landmark there. But we hadn't looked carefully at the 1853 map, the Emory map. If you look at that map, you're going to see 3 places where there's a crossing. So one of them was up there. You go around what was then known as the Mulero Hill, or later in the 30s, Cristo Rey. So it went through Frontera. Another one went very close to monument marker number 1. And then another one went through what is now Duranguito. The river would have been more or less where Paisano Street is in the 1820s. There was a bridge there, a wooden bridge that was constructed by the Spaniards. And all of this is based on original research that I did. Not the bridge itself, but where its location, where it's located. And that bridge, according to the records, is half a league north, directly north of the Misión de Guadalupe. So half a league is 1.3 miles. The one where we think that was Harts Mill, which is not even the location of the map, it's farther north, is more than 3.5 miles away. So we know that it's Santa Fe Street and Paisano Street, right on the edge of Duranguito, that was where the bridge was. That was most likely the crossing of Oñate. That's where Oñate crossed. So let's think about this. We all know that Plymouth Rock, the landing happened in 1620. The Wampanoag people greeted them. There's a sign there. But is there a sign where 20 years before that crossing, the Manso people, and they didn't call themselves Manso, that means tame, domesticated. They probably called themselves Chawi Irewe, one of the words that Beckett, in his study on the Mansos, does. Chawi Irewe means man or person. And so like Ende is the people, Dene, the Navajo, Wirrárica. So it's most likely the Mansos call themselves Chawi Irewe. There is no federal recognition for the Mansos. They've been trying, the Manso Pirotiwa tribe has been trying to obtain federal recognition, and they haven't been able since the 1970s. The Wampanoag people did, yet they greeted the Spanish settlers 20 years before the Wampanoag people greeted the English settlers, right? So why don't we have a historical marking there? Why? Because American history has always been told from east to west. If you put it on the north-south axis, you come up with a whole different perspective. And you come up with these eternal circular migrations between the indigenous people that were here for thousands of years, for millennia, that spoke Uto-Aztecan languages. So getting back to Duranguito, Duranguito is that passageway where there has been incredible migration, incredibly long migrations. Yet, that's not part of our consciousness. That's not part of what we're being taught in school, not at the local level and not at the national level. So Duranguito recenters the American origin story. We're sitting right in the middle, and we're not letting anybody know that El Paso's not the other Ellis Island. El Paso's not the other Plymouth Rock. Quite the opposite. Plymouth Rock is the other El Paso del Río del Norte. So it all has to do with conceptualizing this small space. So what are the names that this little slice of geography called Duranguito has been known for? Well, the indigenous names. Does anybody here know what indigenous people called El Paso before it was called El Paso? One of them was Yatu'ne. That's an Apache or Nde term that means where the river turns. So that's how they would recognize by the river. The mountains that the Spaniards called La Sierra de los Mansos before it was called the Franklin Mountains was called Setahu. So Seta, Se is rock, Ta, water, points. The rock that points to water. So once again, these names, these contested names, the city of El Paso insisted that it was called Union Plaza. Well, the name Union Plaza, as you'll read in my book, wasn't designated for that area until 1997, right? A group of boosters. So there were a lot of other names that little slice of geography was known for. What were those other names? Before it was called El Paso del Norte, it was called Los Puertos. Then El Pueblo de los Mansos, la jurisdicción de los Mansos, the area of the Mansos, because this was part of a 4 square league area of when the Franciscan missionaries designated the places where the Mansos could live. This was part of the area, Duranguito. It actually went all the way to UTEP. La otra banda del río, the northern back of the river, from the perspective of south of the river. And then in the 1790s, for 20 years, it was Establecimiento de los Apaches de Paz, the Apache Peace Settlement. Then it was known as Chivos Bravos, supposedly because there were a lot of wild goats there. Then, as you all know, Rancho Ponce de Leon in 1827. Then he sold it to Benjamin Franklin Coons, so it was known as Coons Ranch. And then Franklin. A lot of people think that it was because of Benjamin Franklin Coons. Some historians think that it was actually because the Missouri Trail started down in Franklin, Missouri. And that's why it was called Franklin. Okay, so you see, once you look at this little slice of geography, you start challenging all the stuff that has been said about this place. Especially since the latest big book on that was Sonicson, right? Sonicson didn't read Spanish. He needed people to translate for him. So when scholars like myself can read hundreds of original transcripts, original documents in the colonial Spanish, then we're going to get a lot more information. And that's what Duranguito forced us to do. I had to present all this evidence in court when we were trying to prove that there was an Apache peace settlement there. And so it passed that test, right? If the city had found errors in my scholarship, they could have easily contested it. Other names, Santa Maria, Smithsville. Then in 1873, when El Paso was first what am I saying? The first mayor, 1873. What?
Incorporated.
Incorporated, thank you. It was known as the first ward. So the wards were just electoral districts. Then, like, beginning in around 1904, the people themselves called it Duranguito. Why? Most likely because one of the streets was called Durango, and sometimes the whole area is known after one street, right? That's probably the reason. Then it wasn't until the 1990s that it was called Union Plaza as part of a gentrification project. And then later, the city called it the Arena Footprint, beginning in 2016. And then now we go back to this, the birthplace of El Paso, right? So names are part of the history in more than one way. It has to do with different ideas. Every building tells a story of power, of resistance, of negotiation and renegotiation. That's what I'm doing when I do microhistory. So in this map, you're going to see 10 sites. Each one of those sites can be a chapter in a PhD dissertation easily. So this is a photograph from 1927. Almost all the buildings in that street, Chihuahua Street, you're looking towards Overland Street on Chihuahua Street, are still there. So I remember the city of El Paso saying, the city attorney of El Paso, there is nothing historical in Duranguito. So all we had to do was just blow up this picture and say, if there's nothing historical, how about these apples? What's one of these buildings? Well, there's the Coffin Residence, and you can read more. Thankfully, you have the book here, so you can go. And it's also, you're going to see a lot of footnotes, and they're all laid out for you, so it's easy for you to verify this information.
I'm just going to jump in and say we have a marker in process for the coffin.
Ah, very good.
Yes.
Very good. So what is the story of that one? Well, the fact that it's wood, even the construction material tells you something about the history. So the Easterners that were coming here, the owner, Coffin, he was connected to a lumber company in Colorado, New Mexico, and New Mexico as well. So, of course, this is one of the first residences, and it may be as early as 1881 that it was constructed out of wood. So that has its own story. And of course, the Villista clandestine house. So this was one of the reasons Duranguito and Segundo Barrio were so important to the Mexican Revolution, because of its location, of its proximity to the border. So Pancho Villa was more than likely never there, but Hipólito Villa, his brother, was. And that story has to do with espionage, it has to do with smuggling, it has to do with plotting. One of the many reasons that El Paso played such a huge role in helping to launch the Mexican Revolution. The Flor de Luna house, the people that lived there, I mean, please read it thoroughly. Just the fact, I mean, that was a Syrian Lebanese grocery store. That's where First Ward City Alderman Michael Dolan lived in the 1880s. So that building was likely constructed around 1884. It already appears in the bird's eye view map of 1885. And it was built, by Venancio Azcárate Stephenson. And she was also a fascinating woman in her own right. She married a Hispanic Confederate officer, and then an Anglo-Union officer, and then later John Leahy, and all of them died terrible deaths. So that's a whole novel unto itself. And of course, we have the Chinese laundry. So it's the last standing laundry of that era. That building that was used as a laundry, there were at least 17 Chinese-owned laundries. We all know that the Chinese immigration story is utterly fascinating and important to the construction of the railroads. And those stories shouldn't be destroyed. I mean, there should be, well, definitely a historical marker. I think every one of these 12 sites absolutely
I have all the paperwork for, I'm just talking, sorry, but I have all the
Yeah.
paperwork for the Chinese laundry that totally, specifies everything.
Yeah.
But the owner wouldn't give us the sign off.
I remember.
So,
I
yeah.
remember. That's part
It
of.
should be designated.
That's part of, I mean, this should be like a historical Disneyland. People should just go to every site. We've been trying to do it on our own. We have a group of students, and they do the play acting, similar to what was done at the Concordia Cemetery. Just in front of every building, people dress up as the ghosts that lived there. So this one also has a story that the Comité Cívico Democrático in the 1980s, that was when Mayor Tom Westphal was engaged in the heated battles with people from Segundo Barrio that didn't want their neighborhoods demolished. And that represents a history from the bottom up, maybe not part of the official history, but more of a people's history of a community that gathered, they occupied the building and managed to get a whole bunch of local businessmen to say, no, we'll buy it for you and we'll invest in, and it's fixed up, and there's still people living there today. Of course, we all know this fire station, fire station number 11, and it was done by the Henry Trost Company, he and his brother, in the 1930s. And there's buildings that still have great importance to the community today. That Casa Vides is one of the refugee sites, which of course, as we all know, Governor Abbott went after them recently. So once again, whether you like the history, support it or not, it's part of the history. It's part of the narrative of this space. We have a lot of places. Pancho Villa used to buy equipment for his troops. And this one is the Chalmers Motor Car Company. That building doesn't exist anymore, but it's more or less where the Greyhound bus station is today. And then we have all these people that haven't been written about in the history books that are related to this space. And Zazen, can you tell me about how much more time I have?
Yeah, go for it.
Oh, yeah? Okay, thank you. So, and Zazen was one of the leaders of, there's cluster family bands called Gota. I'm sorry, I can't even pronounce it. They do like this little click, Gota, which is the Spanish documents called it rancheria, but it's not a ranch or anything like that. It's clusters of family groups, about 50 to 150 people, and they unite in times of battle. And so Assassin was one of the leaders of this Gota. And he was one of the ones that approached the Spanish presidio here in the El Paso del Norte region and said, we want to form a peace camp with you. And Duranguito was this site between 1790 and 1806. Between 800 and 1,000 Mescalero Apaches lived in that site, which included Duranguito. That's where the Spaniards allowed them to plant corn and beans. They wanted them to be sedentary, and they also wanted them to be next to that wooden bridge, because that way they could control them better. If they tried to rebel, the Spaniards would go from what is now Juarez to what is now El Paso through that bridge in order to contain them. And that bridge was also part of the Camino Real. So once the bridge was there, then it became the most important of the three roads through the Camino Real, the one that went through Duranguito. So the Camino Real, which as you know is hugely important, sliced right the middle through Duranguito. That's another reason that we have to commemorate this space. Okay? We know that the Camino Real passed through there, and we need some markers to say that as well. Juan Maria Ponce de Leon, I give you a whole bunch of reasons why he's important. So remember, he owned wagons. So that was part of why he wanted to build his house right where he built it, on El Paso Santa Fe Street. Because the wagons would pass by, and he probably sold everything from wine to some of the fruits from his orchard. And we don't think about that. that connection between Ponce de Leon, the fact that he was a wagoneer, and the fact of why his first house was located where it was. Benjamin Dow was part of the first ward. Juana Marquez Dow, who was Tiwa, the daughter of a Tiwa cacique, owned property in Duranguito. So that goes into the whole story of indigenous and women, right? Stories that are usually not told in the official historiography. Venancio Escarate Stevenson, I just talked about. Her story is utterly fascinating. Of course, she was the daughter of Hugh Stevenson and Juana Escarate. So please look into that and look at the documentation. I mean, once again, you can write a PhD on some of these topics. So one of Franklin's most famous alumnus was Hollywood movie star Gilbert Rowland, and his real name was Luis Antonio Damaso de Alonso. He was born in Ciudad Juarez, and in 1905 to a family of Spanish immigrants. His grandfather and great-grandfathers had all been famous bullfighters. He was like the silent film. He and Rudolph Valentino were extremely well-known and liked. He was one of the famous people of Duranguito. Cleofas Calleros lived there. So his work also, when he was living there, was related to the railroads. He once armed 500 Catholics against the Ku Klux Klan in El Paso. That's another story that has been told. There's so many stories. So Mike Payan, boxer, who was known as the Chief Payan or the Aztec Kid. He was of Yaqui and Mexican descent. Mario Chavarria was one of the, he lived in the civic committee building that the residents fought to save. Reyes Lopez Tijerina. He's one of the most famous Chicano activists of the 1960s, 1950s. He lived in Duranguito the last years of his life. Extremely, extremely important political figure. And now we have the present, Toñita Morales, who's 96 years old. And a lot of times, it takes 100 years to commemorate people. 100 years from now, they'll say it was Toñita Morales and Romelia Mendoza, the last two women that held the fort. And we don't have to wait that long. I think we need to create a community garden and name it after her. Native ground, Yatuané, the place where the river turns. Pueblo de los Mansos. Remember, the Camino Real was also an important slave trade route. The Spaniards, there's a book by Reséndez, The Other Slavery. I recommend it. And it talks about how important the slave route was and how little documented it is. But that's another element of that. Today, the Manso Pirotiwa tribe is still around. And this is a ceremony that they did in 2019, a land reclamation ceremony at Duranguito. And it commemorated the land granted by Governor Tomás Vélez Cachupin to the Manso Piro Nation in 1751. So when the Isleta people received their grant, the Senecu people, Socorro, the Mansos received a grant that included Duranguito. Not only Ciudad Juarez, it went north of the river. So another part of the history that isn't usually told or known. The Ponce de Leon Ranch, so we have, I think most of us know that history pretty well, but if you look at it, you'll see a few little details here and there. Coons Ranch, Smithsville, Franklin. The Mescalero Peace Settlement, 1790 to 1806. So here, if you notice, there's three acequias. One is the one that goes close to San Francisco Street, and that's the one that's usually associated with Ponce de Leon. And then there's a bottom one that says Fort Bliss. I don't know if you can see that, where it says Fort Bliss, the very bottom one. But how about that middle one, that branch? So if you look, and I included that documentation in the book that I gave you, there was already an acequia before Ponce de Leon bought this piece of land. So my question is to you is, if you've been told that there was nothing north of the river before Ponce de Leon, how come there was an acequia there? And it was called the Francisco Bernal acequia. Once again, I have the footnotes. You can look at all of that. So who was Francisco Bernal? He was the Capitán de la Milicia. He was the militia captain that was in charge of the Mescalero Peace Camp. And he constructed that acequia specifically for the Apaches in 1790. That is a marker we need to place because it goes back to the indigenous roots of this city before the Mexican roots, right? Well, it was during the Spanish colonial era, but before it became Ponce de Leon, there was already an acequia. And you know how much labor it takes to establish an acequia. So it wasn't a small little project. It was a big project. And it's part of the history that was never told. Sonicson didn't talk about the Bernal acequia. No other historians before some of our research had talked about this. So this is cutting edge information. If you read this book carefully, you're going to see that there's a lot of cutting edge research. So this is photographed by Charles Turrell in 1886. And so the major, right down the middle, that's basically Chihuahua Street. And one of those big buildings is on Chihuahua Street to the right. That is the first building that was constructed in 1884. And that was owned by Venancio Escarate Stevenson. I would say the richest woman in El Paso at that time. And here it is, the largest Chinatown in Texas. Why? Because of the railroads. Pancho Villa, he would buy his motorcycles, Indian motorcycles, very likely in the downtown area, the Duranguito area. Union Plaza, that was a gentrification project. That gives you all the, so this is 1997, gives you all the information of the Union Plaza district, how many people lived there. That was the first time that a whole 14-block area was designated as Union Plaza. Before that, it was only a 4-block area where all the nightclubs, Club 101, that was what was called Union Plaza at first. Later was the arena footprint area, when a group of developers designated Duranguito specifically to displace the people, to force people to sell their land through eminent domain. All of this, historians in the future are just going to find utterly fascinating. That's also part of the history. And as you know, there's been some problematic things that the city has done to sell this plan. So this is a branding study where the city of El Paso paid $100,000 to say, look at this old dirty truck from the 1970s. Wouldn't it be great if we replaced it with a brand new Gus Gusling SUV? And then they would say, look at the people that represent El Paso today. An elderly Mexican man, who's gritty, dirty, lazy, speaks Spanish, uneducated. Wouldn't it be great if we built some wonderful nightclubs? Then we would have Penelope Cruz and Matthew McConaughey come on down. This is part of the history. This is the HKS architectural vision for Duranguito, a model of what the arena footprint and surrounding area could look like if the historic buildings were demolished. When I saw that, I just saw that as the picture-perfect example of whitewashing of the city. And these are the people that fought to protect their barrio. Activists, people that stood up against bulldozers, against very powerful people that wanted to eliminate their barrio. And now, this is a vision for the future. The people themselves said, what would we like this place to be? What is our vision for the future? So this is where we're at now. We hired architects. Just recently, we turned in Project Regeneración, which is a nonprofit group of community people that have for a long time stood with the residents. We turned in the request for qualifications to the city of El Paso, together with a group of a developer group called Alembic Community Developers, and they have a lot of experience throughout the United States in buying up these historic buildings and turning them into educational spaces, cultural spaces, low-income housing. So we've turned in this request for qualification proposal. We're waiting to hear what's going to happen. I know the Tiwa Indian community also turned in a proposal. So we feel that there's some hope. We fought to save this neighborhood. As you all know, the city put it up for a vote again, and people said it's going to be way too expensive to build the arena there. Why don't we do something different? So it's not like we're only fighting against something. We're fighting to preserve our history. But yes, we want improvements. Of course we want improvements. Of course we want a beautiful place that will draw in visitors from all over the world. I think I'll stop here. Do I open it up for questions, or?
Yes, please.
Yeah, please.
Sure.
Any questions? Well, I have one.
Yes.
How would you see us or the county fitting into an overall plan? Or is that just like too broad and you'll think about it and get back to us?
No, that's a great question. We actually.
Microphone, please, sir.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yes, please.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Okay.
That's a great question. We actually presented this plan that's up on the screen right now to the county commissioners themselves. And they were very interested in the possibility of investing in some of these buildings. The process has been very long. There was an attempt to communicate with the mayor at that time, not the current mayor. And that mayor didn't seem to be very responsive to meeting with the community, the county commissioners. But hopefully with this new mayor, and it seems to be a long process. But we, as Project Generación, would be very interested in your participation as a county, both at the government level and your level. So what I would like from you all is to do the research. I mean, please, if you have questions and you think maybe some of this documentation needs to be further bolstered, I would love to hear your feedback. I think you're going to find that it's very thorough, all these stories and all this, what the possibilities are to use it as a site, an educational site for
Yeah,
visitors.
Before, I was a concert promoter, so I know, like all of the big people in Live Nation and everything. And right before this all happened, of course, that area was a very vital. It was at the top of its game as far as those last Thursdays. And just
Yeah.
coincidentally, I had a friend who was like a vice president at Live Nation, was
Yeah.
in town for a concert that they were putting on, and
Yeah.
I took him through. And at that time, that whole area, there were the galleries, there was
Yeah.
music, that everything, it was,
Yeah.
and here's, Live Nation, of course, is the largest concert promoter in the world. And
Yeah.
he came in, he was like, wow.
Yeah.
This, because he had lived in El Paso a few decades ago, and he was like, this is incredible. And then after that, the
Yeah,
city
no.
just didn't see that potential and went in a different direction.
Yeah, the city had no vision at that time.
But it was, and I mean, if that could happen, that basically happened ground up, as you said.
Yeah.
There was not money from any large entity coming into it. It
Yeah.
was artists, it was musicians, it was the community. And so
Yeah.
I feel if that could happen without, that oversight or anything, it can be brought back.
I agree, and remember that Paso del Sur, which is the original group that met with the residents, it was the residents that said, "Yeah, we want this to be an important cultural space. We don't want." Toñita would say, "We don't want our history to be torn down." But remember, we lived here. This is our home, so you do want it to be this fantastic cultural space, but always based on the people that don't exclude them. Don't treat them like that old
Yeah.
man in the Glass Beach study, right?
Cultural history
So-
is the history.
Right,
And
right.
naming has power.
And it's those magical fronteriza señoras, you know, that make it part of that's part of the feeling there, the spirit.
backbone.
Right.
Cool. Awesome. Well, any other questions? And,
I
you
have a
know,
question.
we'll read.
You have a question?
I have a question.
Yes.
I have a question.
Go for it.
Dr. Romo, since you're still on the slide, do you think you could talk us through a little bit more, in a little bit more detail about the pictures
Yeah.
of what your organization proposes? And I think, as I'm thinking of like, what are the heritage tourism components that you can highlight for us?
What are the heritage, excuse me? The
Like heritage tourism or cultural
Okay.
spaces that you could highlight for
Okay.
us? And this is just to Barbara's question about thinking about ways the county might be able to participate.
Okay, yes. So what kind of markers would I see there? And then I'll get into the photographs themselves. I would see the marker of one of the three entrances that cross from that side of the river to this side. And I would call it the original Plymouth Rock. You know, I would say before Plymouth Rock, this is here, right? But even before Plymouth Rock, this was a place that indigenous people saw as a crossing back and forth.
I just don't think we should have Plymouth Rock in it. Because
No, I'm, yes, you're right. I was kidding. I was partially kidding, right? I think that we have to emphasize that the Camino Real was built on a crossing point that passed through that area. I think we have to emphasize that within that Camino Real, there was a whole bunch of other good and bad things that were going on, right? I would like for us to pinpoint, have a marker where the original Ponce de Leon house was located, and I would, we all have the maps. I think everybody here probably knows the location of the first house and the second house. And then every single one of these buildings that I went through, the firehouse, that doesn't have a marker. The Flor de Luna, so if you see this picture of the Flor de Luna, you see cracks. It looks like a kintsugi cup, these Japanese cups that once they're fragmented, you keep the fragmentation within the design. You glue them back with gold epoxy, and then that's where you do the tea ceremony, the leaf ceremony.
You enhance the beauty by adding the
character.
gold, but you keep the structure. It's a beautiful concept.
Right. So I would have, we've presented these images to students of the Texas School of Architecture, and they came up with, they ran with that idea. And they even did like paths. They said, let's close down the street. Let's do some paths, gold paths, and then that you cross in. There's some underground tunnels that some people thought maybe they were used during Prohibition, maybe during the Chinese period, what have you. That could be part of a tour. So I would see the county organizing some of these tours that we've already organized. Dr. Renteria and myself organized tours that had to do with the Mexican Revolution, with South Central El Paso, the Coliseum. I would like, I think we should do a Mexican Revolution museum, and that's one where you see, in the middle, you'll see the Bay Area window. That's a building also from the 1880s where several people lived, including Pancho Villa's attorney, who helped him obtain amnesty from the Mexican government. That could be a wonderful site where people go and learn about the Mexican Revolution in El Paso and the huge importance that El Paso played. The Chinese laundry, somebody proposed that there's a need for social services, and one of them is there is no laundromats, coin-operated laundromats in that whole area in South El Paso. Why don't we do that, but also turn it into a space that would feature photographs, historical information about Chinese immigrants to this city.
Functional reuse.
Yeah, exactly. Functional reuse. There's also the idea of a mercado where the Tiradero flea market was there. And the mercado could have fruits, groceries, for the people that live there, but it could also have these fascinating arts and crafts that are based on El Paso, postcards, all kinds of stuff that you could sell to visitors so that you meet the needs of the residents, hopefully provide jobs to them in the surrounding areas, and you also bring visitors. Another one, I don't know if you see on the very bottom, that cupola that looks like Russian Orthodox. Well, that was based on the old Franklin School. That was constructed in 1891, that had that kind of architecture that looked like a Russian Orthodox church. Bring back some of those historic designs. Unfortunately, that was torn down, and now there's a big parking garage there. There's one place, the third one, in the middle one, there's a purple house there. That was the first Yom Kippur that had an official quorum in El Paso in 1901, was held there. He was the president of the B'nai Zion congregation before it was built, and they had services at his home. Adolf Solke was his name. There should definitely be a marker there as well. We talk about the Jewish American presence here in El Paso. I think if you look at the description, once you read it, you'll see other projects. So one of the things that we wanted to do was an artistic alley park. And you would go, you would see murals, you would have giant chessboards, use the alleys as well to bring in people, create green spaces in some of these. And then, of course, low-income housing. It originally was a neighborhood. About 100 people were displaced. Some of them passed away because they were elderly people. You can't bring them back. But some of them might want to come back, and you create a place for new residents, new low-income residents that can afford housing. I think the city needs to try to address the harm that it did to these mostly elderly working class people and say, we're not going to do it again. Kind of own up to the harm, to this idea that they were just these old people in the way of progress. We have to change our mentality when we do these kinds of projects. And I think this place will be a site that will help us remember and contemplate and discuss, debate what a place can be if it's truly from the bottom up and not bringing in these specialists from San Francisco, one of the most gentrified cities in the world, and tell us how we should be here in El Paso. We have our own culture. We have our own history. It shouldn't be erased.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, it's, even before, all of this, I can remember I was on an arts board with Joe Dorgan from 101, and
Yeah.
they were presenting, this was pre-arena, and they were presenting their vision of downtown, and it looked like New Orleans. It had hanging planters and
Yeah.
white, it's like we've never been proud
Exactly.
of us.
We have an inferiority complex,
But,
and we also have profound ignorance,
but we can change that. We'll work on it.
hopefully.
I have one quick comment. And commissioners, as you know, we've talked about our economic developments, proposed policy revisions for incentives. We've talked about how one of those is historic preservation. We are waiting for the court, Dr. Romo, to approve a final version of the policy. And I know the city has plans for their RFQ, but I would hope that whatever the results of that are, that whomever is working on these projects is always welcome to reach out to the county and see how the county can help for whether it's business development, whether it's our HFFI and opening food retailers, or historic preservation. And so we're happy to connect with your organization once that policy is approved, and y'all are more than welcome to review it and connect with our department to see what fits with your preservation project.
Thank you so much. So on behalf of Project Generación, thank you for your time.
No, thank you so very much for bringing this, and thank you, this is so beautiful.
course. I hope you like it. I hope you
Photographs
enjoy the book.
alone are just gorgeous. Thank you so much,
All right,
Dr.
thank you.
Romo.
Thanks, Dr. Romo.
All right, everyone, well, I feel like everything's gonna be a letdown now, but that takes us to agenda item, that was discussion only, no action taken. That takes us to B, discuss and take appropriate action regarding making a recommendation to Commissioners Court and the Texas Historical Commission in reference to the preservation of Firecracker Pueblo. And that is yours, Commissioner McKenzie.
Okay, we haven't had any significant developments since the last commission meeting. And all we really know is that the Ross Swall was going to take out the northeast alderman out to the site, and we have not heard anything back from Dr. Providencia Velasquez about the proposal to consider a park design in the city plan for that. And so there's really nothing else that I can report at this time.
So do you want to table again
Yes.
till next month?
Yes,
Okay.
please.
Do you want us to bring the item back, or do you want to take it back to committee and let us know if you want the item posted again? It's up to you, sir.
I'll let you know.
Okay, so
Okay.
then
Then
no
for the
action.
moment, we're
Right.
going to table regular agenda item 6B, and we will
Oh.
discuss bringing it back prior to our next agenda.
Yeah, so,
right.
so what we can say, I think, is return it to the committee, and the committee can let us know when they would like it back on, the archaeology committee. Can we just have a motion to postpone, please? And
Yeah.
send back to archaeology committee and let them decide when to bring it back to the full commission.
Okay, I so
Okay,
move.
so motion to postpone, someone?
Yes.
All right, is
Motion
there a
by Commissioner
second?
McKenzie,
Second.
That was
second by
McKenzie.
Commissioner Condon. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes.
Okay, that takes us to 6C. Discuss and take appropriate action regarding El Paso County's participation in the commemoration of the 250th anniversary of the signing of the Declaration of Independence, America 250. Dr. Renteria.
So, as we just heard, we have a very different origin story for our area of what is now the United States. So, we have, as staff, spoken with our volunteer coordinator as well as our county parks director, because the America 250 program has a component of service, right? One of their aims is to have it be the year with the most volunteer and community service. And then the other thing is that our county parks annually hosts a 4th of July celebration. So those are two things that the county is already set up to do that are in line with the America 250. To your point, and from prior discussions, we can do this in a very El Paso way that highlights our unique history and our version of the American story, right? So we can continue to have those conversations. Some of the committees have had those conversations. But today, one of the things that I really wanted to bring to the commission related to this is how would the commission feel about sponsoring an aspect through your budget next year, something commemorative, right, which isn't going to be an event or anything that's going to take up a lot of time, but something commemorative to give away throughout next year at specific events that we can decide, which events, and maybe at the county 4th of July, because that is like the day for the celebration. So I know in the past, we've talked in different committee meetings about coins. We could do American flags, we could do T-shirts, but I think that you are the body to recommend some kind of souvenir, for lack of a better word, that can commemorate this point in our history. And for example, if it's a coin, we could request the use of the America 250 logo on one side, and then have something local represented on the other side And that is something the commission can discuss. The other thing that we've briefly talked about as a whole commission is possibly doing some sort of art project, right? And so if we connect with the schools, if we do some sort of art competition, we can have the finalist on display here at the courthouse, have a round of judging, and then maybe announce the winners at the Escarate Park event. So these are all things that I think we can do, with a relatively small budget. We can really put some budget behind something commemorative. But this is just an idea for how the commission can participate as an aside from what you're discussing in your committees already, which there's a little bit of overlap.
Okay.
So just looking forward to your thoughts, commissioners, if you want to take a few minutes to discuss.
Well, I do like of course, the art project, since I suggested it. But, I mean, we do, as long as we have we don't know what our budget will be, but I think that could, we never spend down our entire budget, and so that definitely is an option. I mean, okay, and I'll just throw it out there. Personally, for me, and it has nothing to do with whether I respect or not the American flag, but I would not want to be giving away flags, because I think part of, as we saw from David and us, I mean, we're different. We're part of the 250, but we have our own identity. And so something like either a coin or a button or, the American flag is part of us, but it's not us. It's not the big picture of us.
Right, and that would be more the 250 connection, right?
Yeah. So, we are part, but if we're going to actually try to, that's basically a commemorative piece. And so I'd want it to commemorate both, the enormity of the 250, but yes, the individuality of us. So, totally down.
Right, and with buttons or T-shirts, and without wanting to be too hokey, right? We could come up with some sort of slogan that says, and we, again, not to be disrespectful, but there's a way that we can say America 250, El Paso over 400 years. It's something like that. And I think a button, we could do it really well. But I think something that makes that connection and with somewhat positive, right? Just stating the facts, right? Our origin story is a little different, but still engage with the anniversary, because that is the national anniversary.
Sure. Obviously, we haven't put in our budget request, so we can kind of line item that in there
and so.
But first, we should probably talk about within whichever committees what we want to do, because that's going to be the budget. And obviously, T-shirts are a lot more expensive than buttons. I've never bought commemorative coins, so I am clueless there. But,
Yeah.
it would depend on how many versus,
Sure, and we can just, depending on the events that the different committees want to host, and we could say, we're doing this only for the winners of the art show, or the participants, or the first 50 people at Escarate Park, or if we want to do, I know our Parks Director, Tim Fulton, is very into having a historical component, even if it's at the celebration, or if it's a panel before, just to add events, right? Because there's an audience for this. So I think we need to decide that. I think that the commemorative part of it, I would recommend bringing it to Education and Heritage Tourism,
Yeah, definitely.
and then going from there, if that works with you, Chair Hamilton.
Yes.
Okay.
Cool.
All right, so this is information only.
Okay, any questions, though, or any comments before we go on? Okay, again, information only, no action taken, but think about it, please. All right, that takes us to item D. Discuss and take appropriate action on cancellation or rescheduling of November 11th, 2025 County Historical Commission meeting due to it taking place on a federal holiday, Veterans Day. So, oops.
The courthouse won't be open, so I think the question really is,
Meeting in the park.
do you want
Find
to
a saloon.
meet on a different date, or would you like to cancel for that month?
Go for
My only
cancel.
thing is, We usually cancel December if we're going to cancel one. The only reason I'd want to reschedule, I'll be honest, is because that's the tail end of this year, and so that's the last point where I can really push everybody to come up with something, so that I can write it up for our year. I suppose we could do that in committee if the committees have meetings. Hint, hint. And again, that's really not like directed toward anybody that's here, unfortunately. So I don't know what y'all think. What do y'all think? Mark Howe, we're going to start with you.
November 4th,
Well, I said cancel, but you're right about we need to figure everything out for the end of the year, so we need to reschedule.
yeah.
Should probably reschedule for.
Okay, does everybody concur with rescheduling?
I
Yes.
concur. Yeah.
Do you want to reschedule for November, or do you want to do early December?
I would say if you could possibly just send out a poll.
Okay.
Like that would be, I mean, my preference would be still in November, but then we're going to hit Thanksgiving and everything, so it would be, and also, of course, we've got to make sure that the room's available. So it's going to take a little bit of networking, but, bless you, sorry. But I would like to do it in November, but if it goes into the beginning of December, that's what it is.
Okay, so from here to the next meeting, staff can look into the logistics
Okay.
of rescheduling the meeting. So today, we would just need a motion to reschedule
Reschedule.
the November meeting, and then we'll bring you some options for dates next month.
So
Okay.
moved. I move it.
Motion by Commissioner Hamilton. Can we have a second?
I'll second.
Second.
Second by Chair Welch. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes.
Okay, that takes us to item E. Receive an update from county staff on the newly enacted changes to the Texas Open Meetings Act, TOMA, requirements in regarding to the remaining 2025 CHC meetings and posting of the agendas for public review. Dr. Renteria.
So Commissioners, as you know, this year's state legislative session, the original one, just wrapped up. And so there are some significant changes to the Texas Open Meetings Act. We want to highlight more of those changes in detail next month for you. Today, what we'd like to focus on is the changes to posting, publicly posting the agenda. So before this session, we had to post 72 hours in advance? 72 hours in advance, up to the start of the meeting, right? So really, as long as we posted by like 4 o'clock on Friday, we were good, had the clerk stamp it, publicly posted, show it online. The change now is that it has to be posted 3 business days in advance.
Okay.
So that significantly changes our internal deadlines for collecting your agenda items, for having our reviews with county admin and legal, getting the clerk to stamp it, and then having it posted. So Ms. Curran has graciously created this very awesome calendar, which I think is pretty accessible, but I'm going to let her walk you through it. And I really want to highlight the green, right? This is when we'll be taking your agenda items. And, we've sometimes in the recent past been flexible and received some items and like wrote them in right before an agenda review because this shift is county-wide. These are going to be harder deadlines. So go ahead, Ms. Chacon.
Yes, Commissioners, I will walk you through the calendar. For ease of counting, we eliminated the weekends. That way you're just looking at Monday through Friday. And as Dr. Renteria said, you would have to post by 8 o'clock on Thursday mornings for it to give you the full business day. So highlighted in red are the dates that we will be doing the posting, okay? Highlighted in green is the whole week where it would be ideal to be getting the submission of materials from you all, from the commissioners, okay? And then the yellow highlight leaves us space to assemble the agenda and get the review from the county attorney's office and the chief administrators. And then, like I said, the light blue shows you just very clearly what those 3 calendar days are, the business days, not calendar. And then the meeting dates are shown in the dark blue.
Cool.
Okay, and
Easy
then,
peasy,
and
you've
then,
laid it
the-
out really well.
well, then you'll notice there's a black box at the end of the green week. And that's the day that we would like to program executive committee to review the agenda before we take it to legal and chief administrators.
Okay, makes sense.
Thank you,
Thank you.
Corinne. Any questions for Corinne, myself, or Jacob?
Commissioner Cow?
So you need a committee report for archaeology that Friday, correct? The 22nd?
So hopefully before that black box date, right? Because that Friday, we're hoping to meet with your chair and vice chair, make sure that they have all the items. So you can send those committee reports. You know, usually we run them through chair and vice chair. Given this new set of deadlines, how does the chair and vice chair feel? Do you want these sent directly to staff? What process would you
I
like?
think if you still send them to us, but, by like the date before the black box date.
We have our meeting the day, that Thursday evening.
So then you might be a month behind.
Yeah. Yeah, it's gonna throw
So-
us off a little bit.
Well, usually Corinne's really good because she's in the meeting and she sends me the stuff and so we get it.
She is, but Corinne has a lot on her plate.
I know, okay.
So
yeah.
I
We get
I
it to
think
you
that's,
on Friday morning or so, then
I
you're.
think that if you are like thinking about something that you want on the agenda, I mean, send it over, even if it's prior to the meeting. We can add it to the agenda.
Oh, it's just the committee report
I know,
itself.
but say, I mean, if you know, I think each committee chair pretty much has a feel for what's going to go on in the committee meeting. And so if you have something that you think is going to come up, send it over. If it turns out that you don't want it in the agenda, we can always just exit, But it's better to have more than, we can't add afterwards.
Fine,
And it'll take effectively, this is just,
okay. So we just got some feedback from our attorneys. So you can send the backup, the week of the yellow for committee reports. What we would need to know by the black box date is, are you going to submit a committee report? So that we can post the language, have it reviewed. And so again, staff is here to support, and I think Corinne has done an excellent job of writing up notes. I've done that in the past for committee meetings as well, and what we typically do is send it to the chair and say, this was our takeaway from your meeting. Do you have any revisions, additions? But it also helps, and I know that you all are volunteering, I know that this is a service, but it does help us help you if we get a response and feedback. So does that help? Mark? Yeah? Okay.
I'm good, so you'll have archaeology, don't worry.
and that's actually really helpful because, again, you probably wouldn't have time to write up your notes, but at least you can say, we'll have it, put it on the agenda.
Yeah, that's fine.
And send it through, hopefully as early as possible, though, in the yellow week.
Yeah, and we're working to make sure that we are structuring those internal meetings for reviews to fit the new deadlines. We can also separately work on a committee calendar, if that's helpful for the commission. Or what we've been doing is sending like recurring calendar invites. But if you would like a committee calendar, that's something we can develop. That does make your meetings a little more fixed, right? Because if we're sending these out to non-commission members, folks are making plans to attend your committee meetings.
It's
So.
really rude if you cancel them.
So we're really happy to do that as staff support. Just let us, and we'll circle back to you at this month's committee meetings to ask.
Any questions, any other questions? Okay, again, information only, no action taken. That takes us on to agenda item F, receive a presentation from El Paso County Attorney's Office and county staff regarding House Bill 4187, recently passed this Texas legislative session. And you're up.
Thank you, Commissioner. Chair. Can I take one of these? No.
No.
Thanks.
I hope we're not making you nervous.
No, not at all. My allergies have been super
I'm
bad
kidding.
lately, so.
Cool.
Oh, I think I broke this. All right, Assistant County Attorney Jacob Reynolds, thanks for the opportunity to address the commission. I'm just going to be going over a quick legislative update from our most recent regular legislative session. This is going to be focused on House Bill 4187. House Bill 4187, as some of you ledge heads may know, made sweeping changes to the Texas Historical Commission process, as well as the responsibilities of several affiliated nonprofit organizations. This presentation is going to be limited only to those issues that are relevant to this commission. I didn't actually break that, did I?
When you lifted it, it got disconnected.
I'm so sorry.
If it doesn't come, you can still use it.
Will this still work?
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. Thank you, sorry about
Sorry,
that.
no problem.
So the first change I'd like to talk about is Old Socorro Mission is now included on the list of state historic
Dr.
sites
Hamilton.
under the THC's
This just
jurisdiction.
went out. Sorry, I've just.
Oh,
like-
no.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Technical difficulties.
Hold up
Sorry.
a show?
No,
Not yet.
still-
Yeah,
now
it's initializing.
initializing.
It's good. Yeah, it'll come up. Feeling for that, and I couldn't find it.
I didn't break that one too, did I?
No, you didn't.
Okay.
That was all mine. That's all mine.
So the Socorro Mission is now included as state historic site under the THC's jurisdiction. The THC is required to approve historical themes and interpretive storylines for THC-managed historic sites based on a framework that portrays a cohesive story of Texas as seen through its historic sites. All of the historic site exhibits and programs must be consistent with that approved framework, and all volunteer educators, interpreters, guides, and presenters must, who interpret these sites must be trained by THC staff and present them to the public in a manner consistent with the THC framework. So what we've seen is very much a consolidation of interpretation and narrative construction by the THC. And this is going to be in the Government Code section 442. And of course, the one that is most important to us is the official state historic markers. Previously, as some of you may know, the maintenance for historical markers was the mandate of the Texas Facilities Commission. There have, over the years, been several conflicts between that agency and the THC. And the legislature this last term stepped in and made the THC the sole agency with jurisdiction over those historical markers as in terms of their preservation and maintenance. So the chapter 442.006 has been amended to reflect that the THC has now got jurisdiction over and is responsible for the preservation, maintenance, and repair of official state historical markers, as well as several other classes of markers, including Civil War Centennial markers and Republic of Texas markers. When read with the local government code section governing the county historical commission's responsibilities, the CHC should establish a system for the periodic review, assessment, maintenance of official Texas historical markers in the county. And we understand this to show a system now in which the CHC is in charge of reviewing the historical markers in El Paso County. THC is in charge of their repair and maintenance. And that is regardless of if they are on public or private land.
Yeah, I'm going to ask you questions.
Of
sorry, but
course.
Is there, do you know if there's a mechanism already in place for this? Because we actually have a mechanism for reviewing and assessing, but we've never had a mechanism to then go to the THC.
So in terms of the specific logistics, I am not aware of a specific mechanism yet. There are some implications of these new legislative statutes that I am planning on coming to you next meeting in an executive session item. So talk about the actual concrete legal responsibilities and obligations, and we can take that issue up at that point. But this has been an ongoing piece of research by the county staff and the county attorney's office.
Cool.
Yeah. All of these changes are effective September 1st, 2025.
Okay.
And there's the Socorro mission.
Awesome. I mean, that's actually good news if they actually, if they fulfill their obligation, it's great news. So, are there any questions?
Say, current Socorro mission is now under THC, or are you talking about the first Socorro?
old
The
Socorro.
old Socorro mission.
What?
The old
Socorro
Socorro mission. The first one.
Okay, where there's just the field and everything.
That's correct.
This is just a really beautiful picture of the current Socorro
The
mission.
current Socorro mission,
It's
yeah.
a beautiful picture.
Well, it's not Duranguito, so.
And to be fair, there is not very much standing at the old Socorro
there
mission.
isn't,
There isn't
there
anything,
isn't.
right? So,
Field, basically, so that's why I want to make sure, like,
Yeah, this is a
Not
much
this
better
one, 'cause
picture.
that's-
This is purely for,
church.
purely artistic,
It's like
value.
illustration only, not to scale.
Yes,
thanks, I just want to make sure that was like,
of course.
okay.
Any other questions, commissioners? All right,
No,
thank you.
that's actually good news on both fronts. As I said, obviously with the Socorro mission, that's just great news.
Mm-hmm.
And if the THC fulfills their obligation from their side, that's really good news too. So yay. So any further questions?
Did they say anything about who's going to be in this area, who's going to be maintaining the markers?
Well, that's kind of what I was asking, what the mechanism, so
Right.
we'll have to
So,
find
yeah.
out.
Yeah, statutorily, the Texas Historical Commission is the only agency with statutory authority to maintain the markers.
So
Okay, so I guess we'll wait and see.
we'll say, it's busted, come on down.
That's, our understanding of the new statutory scheme is, we say, hey, please come fix this.
Yeah, okay, coolness. Wow. Well, thank you.
will-
Any other questions?
And I'll have more information
Okay.
on how to navigate this next time.
Cool, thank you so much. And again, information only, really interesting information, but no action taken, which takes us on to item G, receive history, heritage, and historic preservation-related announcements and upcoming events from the County Historical Commissioners. So, Mark Howe, if you want to, we'll start with you.
Yeah, so for the next meeting for Archaeology Committee will be on the 21st at 6 PM. And we'll meet at Timo's Restaurant, where we used to meet for markers and cemeteries. We'll meet there at 6 PM so we can have dinner and go over stuff.
You know, they
Also-
just flunked their, their health inspection,
Where is
They
this?
did?
Timo's, the one that we go to.
How
flunked?
bad?
So just thought I'd point that out. I've never
The
gotten
20
food poisoning.
the 21st, Commissioner?
Yeah. Well, we'll still meet there, and hopefully they get it fixed. Okay, so, and then that way we'll have the meeting notes in by the next day or so, so you know that we'll have that. Also, David left, but I was going to say, I'm on the board for CARTA, and we're looking at working with other various groups to put markers in on CARTA at the missions and areas up the river. David made a good point about that, so I'm going to bring that up and see about something in the future, doing a cost-sharing agreement because we got some good things on that with other groups for markers on that. Because that way, if everybody could pitch in like 500 instead of the marker itself is 2,500, then you have your emblem and everything, and it's actually more people could participate. I'm finish up, I'll tell you. August 1st, 1925, and then September 1st, 1925, there was a huge flood that came through this area. It wiped out a lot of the area in old downtown. Okay, remember, this is the area that's in Mexico now, pre-Chamizal from the 1960s, where we moved the river north. This is the area down there, and then downriver, we had around 16,000 CFS coming downriver from a thunderstorm, like we were displaced in Vado, okay? And people would think, oh, this can't occur. Well, it does. It will occur again. And it wiped out the levees going all the way down to San Elizario. And so I'm doing an article for the El Paso Times as a guest editorialist. It'll be online. And it'll have a lot of pictures on this report that was done by the IBC at that time, International Boundary Commission in 1925. So that'll be out. Got the ARC meeting, and I was going to tell David on some of his stuff. My coworker, if you ever go to the Casa de Adobe Museum, there's a picture of Pancho Villa, and on both sides, my coworker, one is her grandfather, and there's her great uncle.
Oh, wow.
So I was going to tell Dave about that, so I'm going to put him in touch. But, so it's going on, so we'll have the meeting, and we'll go from there. And then Cynthia, the one thing is, as your agenda and stuff for the Western History Association, I don't know, because we're going to be close to that time frame for our meeting. We have to go to Albuquerque.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear. So you won't be here for the September meeting, right?
No, the meeting starts the next day, so we have to figure out, I think, look at the agenda on that, because both of us are presenting at that conference in Albuquerque.
Okay, so that conference starts on Wednesday. So we'll be here on Tuesday for this meeting.
Okay, but,
In October?
yeah, I just want to make sure, because that more, hopefully the next day, we're not starting early in the morning, so we'd have to be up there.
It's not in the early morning. It starts mid-afternoon.
Okay, then we're
Actually, don't
good.
present till Saturday, so I'm planning to be here for this meeting.
Okay.
Thank you.
Commissioner McKenzie?
Okay. Last weekend, I set up an exhibit and presented a program in old Lincoln days at Lincoln, New Mexico, and Cynthia provided me with a lot of brochures that they really appreciated there, and that involved the reenactment of the escape of Billy the Kid, and they were very anxious to know about the San Elizario break-in of Billy the Kid, and so if there's something that I can take back to them about that, and their tourist information people in Lincoln are talking about San Elizario.
Cool.
And to visitors there. I tried to also drop off some at the Billy the Kid Trail Visitor Center in Ruidoso, but they were closed. And but I'll be back again doing another program and setting up another exhibit at Fort Stanton Live on August 23rd. And so if we have something, even just a sheet of paper on the Billy the Kid break-in, that they would like to have material up there. And so,
Commissioner McKenzie, let's connect after this meeting before your trip and see what we can put together. We may even be able to talk about setting up a special tour, reenactment for them in San Elizario, if they want to come visit. But we can talk about those options, and then we can bring it back to the commission.
okay. Then we're beginning, the catalog just came out for our semester classes, and we're going to be taking the class to, the history class, to the firefighters Memorial Park and covering the history of the firefighters, which is in Duranguito. And then we're also going to be doing a class on the county roads from 1850 up through the current time. And Ron Lyman did a thing a couple of weeks ago at the Isleta Visitor Center on that also. And then we're going to be taking the class to Ascarity Park and presenting the history and development of Ascarity Park. And then we'll be going to Rio Vista Farms and covering the Bracero program. And then after that, we'll be doing a series of visits to the oldest churches. And we had done in the last semester, we had talked about the exterior architecture, but in these classes, we're going to be emphasizing the interior architecture. And I was surprised to learn that there's a lot of interest in stained glass art. And we're actually going to be exposing the students to the influence of Tom Lee and a great series of glass that was installed using the imagery of Jose Cisneros that practically no one knows about. And then also El Paso actually has benefited in these oldest churches. El Paso has benefited from Ralph Baker, who was trained by Tiffany in New York to do glass work. And so we'll actually be looking at some glass work going back to 1890s and before 1910. So we'll be going to St. Clement's Church, St. Clement's Anglican Episcopal Church, the First Presbyterian Church, Temple Mount Sinai, and in that one, it'll be the artwork of Hal Marcus. And in addition to the architecture, and then we'll also be going to Trinity and First United Methodist Church.
Cool.
That'll be our semester.
Pretty extensive, very
Our
cool.
semester, yeah.
Cool. Commissioner Condon?
Nothing at this time.
Ah, Commissioner Chaparro?
The Socorro Mission is having a couple of heritage events, celebrations in the fall, so I'll be providing more information. One is in September, one is in October to commemorate the 345th anniversary of the mission. Also, the Rio Vista Farm rehabilitation is going along. The building that will be the museum, the exterior has been completed and the entranceway of the interior has been. So it's just awaiting approval of the well, it's been, I guess, approved by architects, so now they'll be moving on to the rest of the building.
Okay, that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Anything else?
I don't know when our next meeting will be because the school year has started and football games are often on Thursdays now for us. So we'll be in touch about committee meetings for the fall.
Okay, cool. We just need to work that out. Okay, well then for me, I've got really good news on markers because of course this was the week that we found out everything. So first of all, our Casa Ortiz replacement marker is finally signed off on for the language, and so that should be in process soon. But the big news is, seriously, the 3 markers that we submitted, like from us, not including other people, all 3 got approved. So that's my Ruben Salazar. I'm so excited because I was going to be just totally fed up if they didn't approve it. Woody's Dudley and Orr Limestone Quarry, which is, of course, the police academy also. And then we got a registered Texas historical landmark marker, which is really exciting because they're much more difficult to do for the Connerton House. That was, so, I mean, to get 3 is pretty cool. And so now we just have to, do the work on fine tuning the language, et cetera, for the narrative, which is always years in the making, and, but sooner or later, they're approved, we'll have some markers. Yes,
I've got a comment. Earlier this year, we dedicated the marker at the International Museum of Art, and that organization is in the habit of issuing challenge coins, medallions that illustrate some particular detail about the history of the International Museum building and so forth. And their challenge coin for this year actually shows the building with the marker. And
awesome.
It has the text about the marker on the coin, and very interesting.
Cool.
Yeah.
I look forward to seeing that. Awesome. All right. Commissioner Hamilton.
We're running out of time. Just a couple of quick things. On July 18th, they did a ribbon cutting for the Von Ripper mural on the old hospital campus, completely restored.
Amazing.
Completely restored.
Amazing.
The acting division commander was there, garrison commander was there, you were there, and it is fabulous. And if anybody wants to see it, I know a guy.
August 18th?
This was July
Yeah, we had
18th.
the river, you will not
But if you want to see
believe-
it, like I
Yeah,
say,
you will not believe.
I know a guy.
The job that they did on
The-
doing the mural. It's gorgeous. It was gorgeous even falling apart, and now it's really gorgeous.
absolutely. And the Fort Bliss Museum is still on tap to close, but things have proceeded rather slowly. It appears that it is rather difficult to close 27 Army museums, several of which are overseas. So we don't know where that's going to go. There's nothing really new there. They will have a temporary exhibit, probably starting next month, on William Wallace Smith Bliss, to include a Fisk iron coffin, which was developed in the 1850s, which was form-fitting to the person and allowed a person to be sealed hermetically inside so that the person could be shipped somewhere home. And they have Colonel Bliss's coffin.
Oh, wow.
And there it will be.
That
Clean,
sounds like an Egyptian,
clean-
you know what I mean?
cleaned up.
It sounds like a sarcophagus.
Wow. That's what it looks like.
Okay, that's what
It
I
had a
would
little
think.
glass plate.
Yeah,
You
that's
could
what
look
I would
in and
think.
see the guy in
Wow.
there.
Okay,
And there's-
fascinating.
Yes, and they will also have some of the original monument that would be there. The monument that's on the parade field, part of it has been redone because the monument that was in New Orleans when they found it in 1955 was somewhat deteriorated. But they still have the old parts of the old monument, and those will be there as well.
Cool.
And that's it.
Awesome. Okay, wow, lots of interesting news. Thank you very much, everybody. Again, information only, no action taken. That takes us to agenda item H, receive updates from El Paso County staff on heritage tourism, historic preservation, and economic development. And that goes to Corinne.
Does anybody want a water?
I'm good,
You're
thank you. Anybody?
Fantastic. June and July in review. As you all know, in El Paso County, history and heritage are everywhere. Los Portales Museum, these are the topics we'll cover today. The reinstall of the permanent exhibit, the new exhibit that's there now, and then a change in leadership. McGoffin Last Look, the kiosk backdrop project, we'll tell you more about that. Education, the brochure inventory, Coliseum Art Project, Distinguished Service Awards, and the update on the marker committee applications. So after Moms, after the Epic Moms exhibit, Los Portales Museum, the artifacts were moved back to Los Portales, and the staff reinstalled that permanent exhibit. They opened up a new exhibit, the Giving Desert, which had some very good attendance. And so it indicated a lot of interest locally for information on food sovereignty and gardening, which I think is very interesting, and a great opportunity to keep growing that. And we had a celebration dinner to recognize the work of the docents, who are all young students who really did an amazing job with the Smithsonian, both setting it up and taking it down. Despite our instructions for them not to touch anything until we got there, in 2 hours they had taken down the exhibit, and this is the people who set it up, and had everything very set up in a very orderly fashion to be reloaded into the crates. And everything was just super fabricated and engineered so that there was a place for every single item. So they really learned a lot. And in terms of creating a pathway for people working in history and committed to history, it was an incredible project. And there is new leadership at the museum. I highlighted her name. Andrea Figueroa will be serving as the museum director. Would you like to touch on any other details, Dr. Renteria?
No, we asked staff, at the museum team, where they wanted to go, how they wanted to celebrate, and they selected the historic track 1. So we met there one evening, and a special thanks to our economic development director, Roberto Ransom, who treated all the museum staff to dinner.
The McGoffin Last Look event, thank you to Commissioner Condon and Commissioner Chaparro for staffing that. I found it to be a very, just a very relaxed, comfortable, and informative event. And they did close on June 28th. They will be closed for 2 years. They anticipate is the amount of time that will take to do an extensive restoration. Who knows if it will happen on that timeline? You just never can tell, especially in the environment we're in now. And so in the meantime, they are setting up temporary exhibits of different collections in different locations. And one of those is going to be at the International Museum of Art. And they requested from the county to borrow a portrait. I think it's a lovely portrait. My colleagues do not feel the same, of Judge McGoffin. And they will borrow that one, and they will lend us a replica, but it will be in an antique frame. And Dr. Renteria is working on the legal arrangements to get that done, for that to happen. The County Kiosk Backdrop Project. There are some very fascinating information kiosks that are being set up by the county. There's one right outside this room where you can get information and access to different county services. And there's going to be one at Los Portales. And so they asked us for some backdrops that can be used for people to take selfies. And so I think we gave them 8 or 10 kind of iconic images of the county and the Mission Trail, and really some that you just can't see anywhere else, including the lovely Socorro Mission.
And the Horno.
Yeah.
Real quick, and so this is an effort by our Domestic Services Department. This is their project, right? But when it came to putting this one at Los Portales to give areas along the Mission Trail access, he said we could do something heritage tourism-y, and this is that component. So we are going to begin meeting more regularly to develop this project, as he had to go through procurement and all the stuff we all have to go to make the purchase. But this is kicking off pretty soon.
The famous brochure inventory for, I don't particularly want to read this. I think it's for discussion about, what's on hand and anticipating the needs for the years to come. So I will turn it over to Dr. Renteria.
Sorry, really quick. So this is what we have so far. We've been in communication with Nora at Destination El Paso, who of course act as our repository for all our brochures. And they partner with us. They're part of the Education and Heritage Tourism Committee. Because we still have some funding left this fiscal year, we would like to recommend a reprint of the El Paso Black History Tour, the San Elizario walking tour with the edit to add the county seal, the historical commission logo, the logo for the El Paso Community Foundation. So all the folks that worked on there, adding their logos, because that's what we've done more recently with our projects. And the historic railroad and streetcar landmarks. So we have enough funding to print 5,000 of the El Paso Black History Tour, 2,000 of the San Elizario Walking Tour, and 2,000 of the Historic Railroad and Streetcar Landmarks. We would love your support to go ahead and continue with the San Elizario one to add the logos that are missing. We've gone back to the original graphic designer, and so he has given us a fee of about $4 something to do the work, relay it, re-render it, and send us a print-ready copy. So we can do all of this as kind of to start to close out the year.
I think we need to reprint them. I think 5,000 is a lot for the Black El Paso Historic Tour. I know that they're just getting warehouse somewhere, you know what I mean? It's just, so, but, other than that, I would do more railroad and maybe 1,000 more railroad and 1,000 less Black El Paso Historic Tour Guide. And I totally agree on the San Elizario, because that one should have been proofed before it went out anyway, so, it's good to have one that's actually legit, so we can actually bring that up in the next meeting
So
and then we can vote on it in the following.
Well, actually, so we're on a purchasing deadline.
Oh, okay.
So we,
Well,
this
we
is
have
what,
it in the budget, so.
we do have it in the budget. And we haven't heard any other events or programmatic expenses from any other committee. Markers has a separate
Yeah, I know they have a
budget.
separate budget, so yeah,
and so-
I really do think we're gonna run out of railroad well before we run out of, that would be 7,000 Black El Paso Historic Tour.
So we can do, so this is the quote that we've already received, and I think it was released, right?
Okay,
So, and that was an error on our part, right? Like, we wanted it queued up, and then we wanted to discuss this with you, and then go ahead and submit. So we did submit this one as is. What we can do is look at the budget and see if we can add another 1,000 of railroad, if that works.
yeah, I really think we're gonna run out of railroad, I just do, it's beautiful, it's gorgeous. I think that that's the one that's gonna run out first, to be honest. And since we're speaking about this, I think that brochures, we should be looking at ringside seat to a Revolution walking tour. So, just
So
throwing
I
that out
believe
there.
well, let's take a look at the downtown historic walking
Yeah.
district, because a lot may be included
It
there.
would, but just to have that
Like a
particular
history brochure?
focus, like Dr. Roma was saying, it's a slightly different focus. Naming is power,
Sure.
just something along those lines,
Yeah.
but that's again.
Yeah, totally. Bring it to Commissioner Hamilton, and then, in that committee, we discussed, we have a couple of other brochures in the queue, but of course, it's totally up to you all. Happy to have the discussion and bring it back and start planning for next fiscal year.
Cool.
The Coliseum Art Project is now underway. All of the contracts were executed, and the artists have started to bring in some of their designs. 4 artists are collaborating on a design that will be installed inside the museum on some of those large open panels of wall, and the art will depict musical and sports history.
My first job was there.
The former county judge Alicia Chacon, too,
Yeah.
with Sam Cohen. And then congratulations, the Distinguished Service Award. We have a copy for each of you that I will pass out. And that takes us to historical markers.
So
And
on the staff side, we've submitted the requisition to pay for all 3 of your approved historic markers. We've been in close communication with county auditors to to ensure that they submit the forms, that the marker numbers are there, and we'll be communicating with the THC to make sure that the payments are received and applied to the appropriate markers. And with that, we also have, now that we know how many were awarded and what that expense is, we can go ahead and move forward with the 2 local markers that have been previously approved with that same budget item, because it's still historical markers. I wanted to make sure that we had enough to pay for the state historic markers. We did. So we'll go ahead and work on getting those requisitions. And I know we have the language for Vila. We can submit it. This will probably be an informal bid through our procurement process. And then we'll make sure we have everything ready for the Ascarate plane.
Okay, cool, that's awesome. Awesome.
Thank you for your
Corinne.
service, commissioners.
You do beautiful work.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Corinne.
Well, again, that's information only, no action taken. So that takes us to adjournment. Is there a motion to adjourn? It's Commissioner Howe. Is
Motion
there
by
a
Commissioner
second?
Second.
Commissioner McKenzie, second. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Commissioners, thank you so much for your time and service. We'll see you next month and during your committee meetings.
Thank you.